On a packed flight, an entitled Karen decided my paid-for seats were the perfect place to dump her bags. When I politely told her to move them, she snapped that she needed the space more. But what she didn't know was that the flight attendant had been watching the whole thing, and what happened next didn't just shut her down, it upgraded us to the entire row while she sat there stunned. I thought the worst part of flying was the cramped legroom and the recycled air. I was wrong. My wife and I had paid extra for our seats, an entire row on a packed afternoon flight. After weeks of non-stop work, this trip was supposed to be a break. Quiet. Peaceful. No drama. Just headphones, movies, and a couple of hours to breathe. We boarded early, slid into our seats, and stowed our carry-ons. Everything was perfect until she arrived. Karen. She was in her mid-50s, perfectly styled hair, oversized sunglasses, and that unmistakable look of someone who had never been told no in her life. She walked down the aisle dragging 3 oversized bags like she was moving into the plane instead of taking a flight. Without saying a single word to us, she lifted her bags and dropped them straight onto the empty seats beside us. Right on our seat. My wife blinked. I blinked. For a second I honestly thought she'd made a mistake. "Excuse me," I said politely. "Those are our seats." Karen didn't even look at me. She just kept rearranging her bags like she was organizing a storage unit. "I need the space," she said. "You two can sit somewhere else." I stared at her. "No, we paid for these." She finally turned to face me, eyes narrowed. "Well, I have too much stuff and nowhere to put it. You look like you can manage." That was it. That was the logic. My wife squeezed my hand under the armrest. "We'll just ask the flight attendant," she whispered. Karen scoffed. "Go ahead." "I'm not moving." I flagged down a flight attendant, a calm-looking woman with a practiced smile. "Hi," I said. "This passenger put her bags in our seats." Karen cut in immediately. "I just need them there for a little while. It's not a big deal." The flight attendant looked at her, then at the seat. "Ma'am, those seats are assigned to them. Your bags need to go in the overhead bin." Karen's lips tightened. "There's no room." "There is," the attendant replied calmly. "I just closed it 5 minutes ago. I can reopen it." Karen crossed her arms. "I'm not moving my bags. They paid for 2 seats, not 4. I could see other passengers starting to watch. "Ma'am," the attendant said, still polite but firmer now, "you need to clear these seats." Karen rolled her eyes and leaned back like a stubborn child. "I'm not doing it." The flight attendant nodded once. "Okay." That one word made Karen smirk. She thought she'd won. But the attendant didn't walk away. Instead, she reached for her radio and quietly said something I couldn't hear. A few minutes passed. The tension in the row felt thick enough to choke on. Karen sat there smugly, tapping on her phone, acting like she owned the plane. Then a second flight attendant appeared. And a third. "Ma'am," the first attendant said, "please step into the aisle." Karen's smile faltered. "Why?" "Because you're not following crew instructions." Karen huffed loudly and stood up, dragging one of her bags with her. "This is ridiculous. I was just using empty seats." The second attendant picked up the rest of her bags and moved them to the overhead bin. There was plenty of room. Karen went pale. "That space was for me," she snapped. "No," the attendant replied. "It was for paying passengers. Now please remain standing." Passengers were fully staring now. The lead flight attendant turned to me and my wife. "Would you like to stay in these seats?" "Yes," we both said. She smiled. "Actually, there's been a seating change. You two will now have this entire row to yourselves." Karen's mouth fell open. "What?" she shouted. "That's not fair." The attendant turned to her. "You're being reassigned to a different seat in the back." "But those are my seats now." Karen protested. "They were never yours." Karen was forced to walk down the aisle, dragging her bags behind her while people watched in silence. We, on the other hand, were left sitting in a full row, extra legroom, extra space, and total peace. As Karen disappeared toward the back of the plane, I leaned back in my seat and smiled. The flight had just gotten a whole lot smoother. Karen didn't go quietly. As she was forced out of our row, she made sure everyone within 5 rows could hear her. "This is discrimination," she snapped, yanking one of her bags from the overhead bin. "I paid for this flight just like everyone else." The flight attendant remained calm, but her tone hardened. "Ma'am, you were instructed multiple times to clear those seats. You refused. Now you're being reseated." Karen glared at me as if this were somehow my fault. "You did this. You and your little wife." I felt my jaw tighten, but before I could say anything, the attendant stepped between us. "That's enough. Please move to the back of the aircraft." Karen huffed dramatically, dragging her bags down the aisle. Every step was slow and exaggerated, like she wanted to make the biggest scene possible. Other passengers watched her pass with expressions ranging from annoyance to outright amusement. One man quietly clapped when she finally disappeared behind the curtain. My wife leaned toward me. "Did that really just happen?" "Oh, it's just getting started," I muttered. A few minutes later, the plane doors closed and the engines started to hum. We were finally pushing back from the gate. I thought the drama was over. I was wrong. Karen reappeared. She marched back up the aisle with her phone in her hand, clearly recording. "Everyone needs to know how I was treated," she announced loudly. "I was bullied out of my seat by these people, and the airline is covering it up." The flight attendant was already on her way. "Ma'am, recording other passengers is not allowed." "I'm recording for my safety," Karen replied smugly. "These people are aggressive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You literally took our seats." "That's your version," she snapped, swinging her phone toward me. "Tell everyone how you harassed a single woman." The attendant took a deep breath. "Karen, if you don't put the phone away and return to your assigned seat, this plane will not take off." Karen laughed. "You wouldn't dare." The engines shut off. A heavy silence fell over the cabin. The lead attendant's voice came over the intercom. "We are pausing departure due to a passenger issue. Please remain seated." Karen's face went pale. 2 airline security officers appeared from the front of the plane. They didn't look amused. "Ma'am," one of them said, "you need to come with us. This is outrageous." Karen shouted. "They started it." The officer didn't even look at us. "We've been monitoring the situation. You've refused multiple crew instructions." Karen tried to argue, but they gently took her arms and escorted her toward the front of the plane. As she passed our row, she leaned in close and hissed, "This isn't over." I smiled politely. "It is for this flight." The cabin erupted into quiet laughter as she was removed from the aircraft. Her bags followed shortly after. A few minutes later, the lead flight attendant returned to our row. "I'm very sorry you had to deal with that," she said. "As a thank you for your patience, your whole row will remain open. Enjoy the extra space." My wife grinned. Best upgrade ever. As the plane finally took off, I leaned back and watched the clouds roll past the window. Karen was gone. The drama was over. Or so I thought. Halfway through the flight, the attendant stopped by again. "You won't believe this," she said quietly. "Karen has already filed a complaint from the terminal. She's claiming you stole her seats." I laughed. "Of course she did." The attendant smiled. "Don't worry. We have video and witness statements." I looked around at the empty seats beside us, stretching my legs. Worth it. Some people try to take what isn't theirs. Sometimes karma comes with extra legroom. By the time the seatbelt sign clicked off, the cabin felt like a completely different world. The tension Karen had left behind was gone, replaced by the soft hum of the engines and the quiet murmur of relaxed passengers. My wife stretched across the extra seats, laughing in disbelief. "I still can't believe she tried to steal our row," she said. "Some people think rules are optional," I replied, settling back. "Especially when they're used to getting their way." A flight attendant passed by and gave us a friendly nod. "Everything good here?" "Perfect," my wife said with a grin. Best seats on the plane. The flight was smooth for the next hour. We watched a movie, shared snacks, and almost forgot Karen had ever existed. Almost. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from the airline's app. Message regarding your flight. I opened it, expecting something boring. Instead, I saw a complaint summary. Karen had already filed a formal report, claiming that we had verbally assaulted her and stolen her paid seats. She had even accused the crew of favoritism. I couldn't help but laugh. She's still going. My wife leaned over. What now? She filed a complaint saying we took her seats. On what planet? She said, shaking her head. A few minutes later, the lead flight attendant returned. Her expression was apologetic but calm. I just wanted to let you know we've received a complaint from the passenger who was removed earlier. Let me guess, I said. She says we're the villains. The attendant nodded. Pretty much. But don't worry. We have cabin footage, crew reports, and multiple passenger statements. It won't go anywhere. Figures, my wife muttered. Still, knowing Karen was trying to rewrite the story was unsettling. Even when she lost, she refused to accept it. The plane began its descent not long after. As we broke through the clouds, the city came into view, lights sparkling beneath us. It should have been peaceful, but a small knot of tension sat in my stomach. I just knew Karen wasn't done. We landed smoothly, and passengers started grabbing their bags. As we stood up to leave, the same flight attendant approached us one more time. There's one more thing, she said quietly. Airport staff may want to speak with you at the gate. Just routine, since a complaint was filed. My wife sighed. So we're still dealing with her? Briefly, the attendant replied. And I promise you're not in trouble. We stepped into the aisle and waited as the plane emptied. When we reached the jet bridge, 2 airport customer service agents were standing there with tablets. Are you the passengers from row 14? One asked. Yes, I replied. Thank you for waiting. We just need to verify a few details regarding an incident on board. Karen was nowhere in sight, but I could almost feel her presence, like a storm cloud hanging over the situation. They asked us what happened. We told them everything. The bags on our seats, her refusal to move them, her meltdown, and her being removed from the plane. The agents nodded, typing as we spoke. We already reviewed the cabin footage, one of them said. It matches your account. So what happens now? My wife asked. The complaint will be dismissed, the agent replied. And the passenger will receive a warning for violating airline policy. A warning. That was it. I let out a slow breath. That's all. For now, she said carefully. If she does this again, the consequences will be more serious. We thanked them and headed into the terminal. Travelers rushed past us, rolling suitcases and checking phones, completely unaware of the tiny drama that had just unfolded in the sky. As we walked toward baggage claim, my wife squeezed my hand. At least we got a great story out of it. And a free row, I added. We both laughed, the stress finally melting away. Karen had tried to turn a small act of entitlement into a full-blown conflict. She had tried to bend reality to make herself the victim. But in the end, the truth and the flight crew had shut her down. And for once, the entitled passenger didn't get the last word. We thought the chaos ended when Karen was escorted off the plane. We were wrong. By the time we reached the baggage claim, my phone was already buzzing. The airline had sent a follow-up message confirming the complaint had been dismissed, but something about the wording made my stomach twist. It wasn't final, it was just under review. Karen wasn't done rewriting the story. As we stood waiting for our bags, my wife nudged me. Is that her? I turned. Karen was standing near the customer service desk, phone pressed to her ear, pacing back and forth like a lawyer preparing for trial. Her bags were stacked beside her, and her face was red with rage. Even from across the terminal, I could hear her raised voice. Yes, I was removed unfairly. They stole my seats. The crew targeted me. She spotted us. Her eyes locked on mine. She ended the call instantly and stormed toward us, dragging her luggage behind her. "This isn't over," she snapped. "You think you won because you got a few empty seats? We didn't do anything to you," my wife said calmly. "You caused this." Karen scoffed. "Oh, please. I know how this works. I've already filed a corporate complaint. I demanded a full investigation. You'll be sorry." Before I could respond, an airport supervisor approached. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, "we need you to step aside." Karen immediately pointed at us. "Those are the people. They harassed me on the plane." The supervisor looked at us, then back at her. "We've reviewed the aircraft footage and the crew reports." Karen's face fell just slightly. "And," she demanded, "and your claim doesn't match what happened." Her mouth opened. "That's impossible. You placed bags on seats you didn't pay for," the supervisor said. "You refused multiple crew instructions. You recorded passengers. And you disrupted boarding." Karen crossed her arms. "So what? That doesn't mean I should have been removed." "Yes, it does," he replied. "And because of your behavior, you are now being flagged in our system." "Flagged?" she repeated. "Yes," he said. "Future flights may require supervisor approval." Karen looked like she'd been slapped. "You can't do that to me. We already have." For a moment, she didn't speak. Then her eyes turned to us, burning with humiliation and rage. "This is your fault." I shrugged. "You took our seats." She lunged forward, but the supervisor stepped between us. "That's enough," he said. "One more outburst and airport security will escort you out." Karen grabbed her bags and stormed away, muttering under her breath as she disappeared into the crowd. My wife exhaled slowly. "Wow." I nodded. That might be the first time someone's ever told her no. We grabbed our luggage and headed for the exit, thinking it was finally over. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello? This is Corporate Customer Relations," a voice said. "We're following up on an incident involving a passenger named Karen." I almost laughed. They asked us to confirm what happened. We told them everything. Again. Calmly. Clearly. Just the facts. At the end of the call, the agent paused. "Thank you," she said. "Based on the evidence, the passenger's complaint will be permanently closed." "And?" I asked. "And her account will be reviewed for further action." I hung up and looked at my wife. She just got herself blacklisted. My wife smiled. All because she wanted to steal 2 seats. We walked into the arrivals area, finally free of the drama. Some people think the world owes them everything. Sometimes the world finally collects its debt. By the time we stepped outside the terminal, the chaos finally felt like it was behind us. The night air was cool and quiet, a sharp contrast to the noise and tension we'd just escaped. My wife and I stood for a moment near the curb, letting it all sink in. The stolen seats, the public meltdown, the corporate complaint, the supervisor warning. All because one woman thought the rules didn't apply to her. "You okay?" my wife asked. I nodded. "Yeah. I just can't believe someone would go that far over a couple of seats." She laughed softly. "Some people don't care about seat. They care about control." We ordered a rideshare and waited. Just when I thought the story was over, my phone buzzed again. Another airline notification. "Important update regarding your recent flight." I opened it. After reviewing cabin footage, crew reports, and airport supervisor notes, the complaint filed against you has been closed. The reporting passenger has been issued a formal warning and her travel privileges may be restricted pending further review. I showed it to my wife. "Looks like she finally hit a wall." "Good," she said. "Maybe she'll think twice next time." Our ride pulled up, and we climbed in, exhausted but strangely satisfied. What should have been a stressful travel day had turned into one of those stories you tell friends for years. But Karen wasn't done yet. Halfway through the drive, my phone rang again, the same corporate number. "Hello? This is Corporate Customer Relations," the woman said. I just wanted to personally confirm that your case has been resolved. The passenger who filed the complaint has a history of similar incident. This one was the final straw. I raised an eyebrow. Final straw. Yes, she said carefully. Her frequent flyer status has been suspended, and future bookings will require additional review. In other words, she'd burned too many bridges. Thank you for letting us know, I said. When I hung up, my wife stared at me. What did they say? She just lost her airline perks. My wife burst out laughing. All because she wanted to use our seats as a storage unit. The rest of the ride was quiet, the kind of peaceful silence that only comes after surviving something ridiculous. When we finally got home, we dropped our bags by the door and collapsed onto the couch. Best upgrade ever, my wife said, stretching. Extra legroom, free entertainment, and front row seats to a Karen meltdown. Worth every mile, I agreed. I thought back to Karen's face when the flight attendant told us we'd get the whole row. The shock. The outrage. The realization that her usual tactics didn't work in a place where cameras, witnesses, and strict rules actually mattered. She'd walked onto that plane expecting to bully her way into comfort. She walked off it flagged, warned, and humiliated. A few days later, I received one last email from the airline. It wasn't long, just a thank you note for cooperating with the investigation and a small credit added to our account. Karma, apparently, also comes with airline miles. Every time I think about that flight now, I don't remember the turbulence or the cramped aisles. I remember the moment an entitled woman realized she couldn't just take what wasn't hers, and the look on her face when the rules finally caught up with her. Some people board every situation believing they're entitled to more. Sometimes, the final boarding call is for their ego. And when it is, the rest of us get to enjoy the whole row.